Adaku had been pregnant for 5 long years. Tragically, all the children she gave birth to died on the second day after being born. Her husband and family cruelly called her a witch because of this. Rumors spread that Adaku had eaten her children, though there was no evidence for this terrible accusation. Once upon a time, a woman named Adaku had a baby girl. But this baby looked very strange. As soon as he was born, everyone was shocked by his appearance. She was covered from head to toe in thick black hair. He was extremely large for a newborn baby. Adaku's husband, Nnamdi, was horrified when he saw the baby. "What kind of evil child is this?" he yelled. "That thing cannot be my daughter!" Adaku cried hard, holding her unusual baby close. "He is our child, I swear! Please, let me keep her!" But Nnamdi would not listen. Adaku's stepmother, Nena, who always caused trouble, went to Nnamdi. "She has brought shame with this monster," Nena whispered badly. "If you want to save your marriage, you must get rid of it." Nnamdi set his jaw firmly. "You're right, as hard as it is." He looked at Adaku, his eyes like stone. "You have until morning to get that monster out of my house. If he stays, I will disown you too." Holding her strange child, Adaku shook with fear and sadness. The next morning, Adaku was woken up by a loud knocking at the door. She held her strange-looking baby son close as Nena swept into the room, an evil grin on her wicked face. Well, I see you've decided to keep the little monster after all," the stepmother said meanly, "though I don't approve of that choice." She stepped aside, letting some rough-looking men come into the bedroom, "which is why I've made other arrangements." Adaku's blood went cold as she looked at the men with mohawk hairstyles and tattoos eyeing her baby hungrily. These were bad showmen who displayed strange people and animals. "Stay back!" Adaku cried, protecting her son. "I won't let you turn him into a circus freak." The largest showman stepped forward, showing his rotten, crooked teeth in an ugly smile. "Now, girlie, let's not be too hasty. We can pay you good money to take that thing off your hands." He looked at Adaku in an inappropriate way that made her shudder. But the young mother refused to be scared. "He's not for sale, you evil men! Get out before Before you what?" Nena cackled, glaring harshly at Adaku to silence her. "Did you forget what your husband said? This is the only way unless you want to be thrown out onto the streets." Adaku's eyes went wide with panic as she realized the truth. With slumped shoulders, she bowed her head. Very well, but you cannot mistreat him. If he's to be displayed, I'm coming too to take care of him." The bad showman seemed to find this very funny, laughing loudly at the idea. But the rotten-toothed ringleader raised his hand. "Fair enough, girlie. Can't separate the captured beast from its trainer, can we?" His cruel smile grew wider. "We'll just have to make sure you know your place." With a heavy heart, Adaku watched helplessly as her deformed son was snatched from her arms. The showmen quickly tied him up in chains and threw him into a small iron cage on wheels. As the bars clanged shut, the helpless newborn looked at his mother with pitiful, confused eyes that seemed to ask why this was happening. Nena cackled again at the sad scene. "There, you see. I've solved everything. With this disgusting circus act making money, your useless husband might finally decide to let you both stay." The bad showmen took the baby to the village. They wanted to keep the villagers entertained by the baby's ugly look. "Look at the ugly monster baby!" shouted the showman. The villagers gathered around, staring and pointing at the baby in the cage. "He's so hairy and frightful," said a villager. "Make him change! Make him transform!" yelled another villager. The showman grinned wickedly. They planned to make a lot of money from the villagers by making the baby transform his look. "You heard them, beast! Change for us!" One showman kicked the cage hard. The baby cried loudly in pain and fear. "Perhaps he needs some encouragement," said the rotted-toothed ringleader. He took out a whip and lashed it through the bars at the baby. The baby wailed as the whip struck his tender flesh again and again. But no matter how much they whipped and beat him, he could not change his appearance. The ringleader grew angry. "You'll transform for our audience, you revolting creature, or else!" He swung the whip with all his might. Suddenly, the baby's cries changed to deep growls. Thick fur sprouted all over his body. His teeth grew into long, razor-sharp fangs. His little hands became claws. Within moments, he had transformed into a giant, terrifying beast. The villagers screamed in horror. The showman stumbled back, realizing their terrible mistake. With one swipe of his powerful claws, the beast shattered the cage bars. Roaring with unbridled rage, he charged through the crowd. Villagers scattered and ran for their lives, but many were struck down by the beast's massive paws and teeth. Houses were crushed and stores were smashed. Chaos and destruction reigned. After many minutes of the rampage, leaving hundreds of villagers dead or wounded, the beast finally broke through to the woods. He ran and ran through the thick forest, his monstrous roars echoing for miles. Eventually, deep in the wilderness, the beast seemed to wear itself out. Its thunderous growls turned to human-like whimpers. Slowly the fur receded, the fangs shrank, and the muscles deflated. Finally, the helpless form of a tiny, tired baby remained. The poor child, so tormented and abused, was alone in the dark, dangerous woods. He shivered and cried weakly, with no inkling of where he was or what horrors he had unwittingly unleashed on the village. The evil baby's big attack killed so many people in the village. Only 3 of the bad showmen survived. Poor Adaku was the baby's mother. She came looking for her child after hearing the terrible news. The 3 showmen told Adaku, "Your baby transformed into a huge, scary beast. He smashed buildings and killed hundreds of villagers before running into the deep forest." Adaku felt very scared, but still loved her child. She ran into the thick, dangerous woods to find her baby. Finally, she saw her little one lying alone, whimpering like a normal infant again. Adaku scooped up her baby and cradled him tenderly. She hurried home, hoping to hide her child somewhere safe. But Adaku's evil stepmother saw them and screamed. "No! You cannot bring that murderous beast into my house!" she yelled. "That monster child killed so many innocent people. He's just an infant!" Adaku cried. "Please, let me protect him until the danger passes." But the stepmother refused and alerted the authorities. Very soon, news spread of the vicious infant who could shapeshift into a terrifying beast. The king declared the child to be dangerous and wanted him captured immediately. Adaku fled her home, desperately looking for someone to shelter her baby. But everywhere she went, people were afraid. "Stay away from us," they screamed upon seeing the child. "That evil thing will kill us all. Please, I only want to hide him somewhere safe." Adaku pleaded with tears in her eyes. "I will name the evil baby Nzogbu, an Igbo name meaning pain and rejection will end someday," Adaku said to herself. The town crier walked through the village, ringing his bell and shouting, "Hear ye! Hear ye! The evil shape-shifting child Nzogbu is wanted by the king. Whoever captures this dangerous beast and brings him in will be greatly rewarded." Finally, a kind but very poor hunter agreed to shelter them. "You can stay in my small hut," he told Adaku, "but you must keep that child quiet and out of sight." Adaku thanked the hunter profusely. In his tiny hut, she laid little Nzogbu on the cold dirt floor. She cuddled and rocked him until he fell asleep. Adaku stayed awake, keeping a watchful guard over her sleeping baby. In the dead of night, the poor hunter could not stop thinking about the king's hefty reward. He crept over and snatched Nzogbu away from his sleeping mother. The hunter tied up the baby tightly. He stuffed a gag in Nzogbu's mouth to stifle any cries. Then the wicked man fled the hut, carrying the bound infant to the palace to claim the reward. The next morning, Adaku awoke and gasped in horror. Her precious baby was gone. She ran outside searching, calling Nzogbu's name. Adaku finally spotted the hunter near the village market. She rushed over and grabbed his arm. "Where is my son? What have you done with Nzogbu?" She shook the hunter hard. The greedy man feigned innocence. "I know nothing about your child. Now leave me alone, woman." Adaku broke down in anguished sobs. Her baby was gone, likely captured and taken to the king's dungeons. Although Nzogbu was just a baby, she grew much faster than normal children. Despite her frightening appearance and ability to transform into a beast, Nzogbu had one wonderful gift. She was an amazing singer. Her beautiful voice could heal broken hearts and bring peace to troubled souls. In the king's dungeons, Nzogbu was kept locked in an iron cage with heavy chains binding her small body. The cruel guards enjoyed tormenting the strange, hairy child. But when Nzogbu sang her sweet melodies, even their hardened hearts felt soothed. Up in the palace, the king's son, Prince Obena, suffered from a deadly illness. He had been possessed by an evil spirit that caused him to thrash and rage uncontrollably. The royal doctors tried every remedy, but nothing could calm the violent Prince Obena. One night, the prince's fits became particularly severe. His screams of agony echoed through the castle. The king's men rushed in and bound Obena to his bed with thick leather straps. Still, he struggled and convulsed as the malicious spirit ravaged his body. "Give him the sleeping draught," the royal doctor instructed. An injection pierced Obena's arm, but still the evil spirit's grip remained. Down in the dungeons, innocent little Nzogbu began singing a soft lullaby to comfort herself in the cold, lonely darkness. Her gentle voice drifted through the air vents. As Nzogbu's enchanting melody reached Prince Obena's bedchambers, an amazing thing happened. The violent convulsions ceased. Obena's crazed eyes suddenly became calm and his rigid body relaxed. Within moments, he had fallen into a deep, peaceful slumber. The royal doctors and guards stared in astonishment. Never before had such a foul possession been so quickly subdued. One day, Prince Obena decided to take a stroll through the palace gardens. As he walked along the hedgerow, he heard an anguished, pained voice, unlike anything he'd ever heard before. It sounded like the cry of a wounded beast. Obena traced the horrific sound to the direction of the dungeons. He could hear the metal bars of a cage rattling and shaking violently, as if being struck by a great force from within. "Guards! Guards!" Obena shouted in alarm. "Something terrible is happening in the dungeons!" But when the guards arrived, the scene paralyzed them in fear. A gargantuan, hair-covered beast with massive claws and fangs was thrashing wildly inside the confined space. This was no ordinary creature. It was little Nzogbu transformed, desperate for escape after being starved and chained up for so long. With one final earth-shaking roar that shook the entire dungeon, the raging beast broke free from the mangled cage. Prince Obena stood his ground, strangely unafraid of the snarling beast before him. He locked eyes with Nzogbu and said in a firm voice, "Peace, creature. I mean you no harm."